sure how many of you have already looked at SB 101. If you're like most individuals who are so busy that you probably have not had a chance to look at it, we've been trying to get information out about it. We've been working it really hard for the past month. It's generally known as, I love the chapter that deals with cable and all, but they come up with video services. And it's generally known as the Video Services Act. It was filed about a month ago, and I'll tell you, we first started looking at who would be our colleagues against this. So we've worked for about a month with the Municipal League, and they've been opposed to it. We think that as earlier this week, when the fourth round of amendments were filed on the bill, we were able to get a lot of amendments, a lot of things out. This bill was absolutely horrendous. I mean, it would have had Aubrey climbing several trees, particularly on the two pages dealing with PEG.
It takes away all the franchise authority from municipalities. And
Right. So once we filed, we started initially fighting it. I think that Fayetteville as a whole has been the lead on fighting this. We've had some of our colleagues or groups or entities who were against it who later accepted the amendments and were perfectly fine with it. So where the bill started, we were able to get significant changes in it. So I thought I'd just go through just a quick summary. I know your time's precious and everything. But can I see how many of you have already read it? Okay, maybe just a quick review. Okay. I would say Susan has, for the school district, worked on this, talked to legislators as well. Fritz, from the get-go, has done several memorandums. Last night, with a new amended version, I had asked them to write Senator Woods. Senator John Woods is one of the legislators whose district goes into Fayetteville, and so he is on the Insurance and Commerce Committee, is where this was sent in the Senate. And so we've really been focusing on him, but also the other legislators. They need 4 votes to get it out, and at this point, after I attended the Municipal League conference, a board meeting last week, and they were generally still opposed to it, but wanted their lobbyists to work with them on the particular amendments. But one thing that Don Zimmerman, their main lobbyist for the Municipal League, had stated was they think it's 4 against right now and 3-4. But if you know how the Senate operates in these committees, they could pass something out on 1 vote. Somebody might not do a roll call, and it could still get to the floor. So we are fighting this quite vigorously. There are different parts of this bill. It essentially, we started questioning early on whether it affected franchise fees. I know Aubrey's one that has brought up the franchise fees that the city gets. They have reinterpreted what gross revenues mean. There's still questions because raw language that's in here, the language in it's just poorly written bill anyway. And it flip-flops back and forth, but as of now, in its amended version, that doesn't seem to be as big of a priority. We're still trying to calculate what's added in and what's added out, how much would the city lose. A huge concern would be with us, particularly this committee, I think, is how the PEG channels have been treated. It's a clear slap in the face, I think, to the things that particularly Fayetteville has been fighting to preserve over the last 30 years. Now, there were a couple of pages, and Fritz can highlight on those even more. It's pretty nauseous where this bill started out. And I think we got 98% of the attacks on PEG out. Some of the provisions that they did put in on PEG that are still of concern is they can, the cable company, essentially what Comcast, Cox, AT&T, they can, they may put the channels on a tier in which at least 50% of their subscribers have. Well, they may send it nowhere. So there's a lot of wording in here. It's interesting where the shalls are. The shalls are on what, the local government and the schools or the cities must do. The maze is just really willy-nilly about what they should do. The bill focuses on unilateral action of the cable companies. And so with the PEG aspect, one thing, that would be one provision there that provide PEG channels of a service tier subscribed to by more than 50% of a video services provider's subscribers. So it's really unclear on location. Consolidate PEG channels to a single channel location, essentially making it where they're all following kind of like what AT&T follows now. And there were some other provisions that were bad in that. One of the most egregious things it does is it steals the public control of property as well. As you know, where the franchise fees essentially come from, it's what I've mentioned before, it's really about dirt. A lot of this is about dirt. But we have, the city of Fayetteville has rights-of-ways, and right now we control those. They are the people's that we protect. The cable companies, let's just use that, video service providers, they pay a rental fee, and it's a rental fee. Okay? What they'd like to do is flip that into not only the payment of the rental fee, but have their unilateral ability to file for a sheet of paper called a certificate of franchise authority. And when they do that, it will get rid of all the franchises, in the districts in which they get those certificates. So this bill would take away contracts. It would take these contracts totally away and substitute it with a sheet of paper. Okay? What is required with that sheet of paper called a certificate of franchise authority? It's filed with the Secretary of State's office. And essentially, if you want to have total control of right-of-ways, change pretty much immediately the territory that you will serve, change the boundaries, change who you will serve, change your build-out, not build-out, and say, we just want to serve this part of Fayetteville. They can do that by the company's choice. So it's taking control of the public lands owned by the public and giving that control. The legislature, the state, would be giving that to these corporations. And that's largely what this bill would be about. And it's quite egregious where they're doing this. The other things on the rights of way, just real quick. Essentially, when you file for the certificate, it's almost laughable. You state they used to call themselves a person, and they still kind of define themselves as a person in here, but they sort of changed that language. I think because they were attacked, some on that by the Arkansas Times as well. But they essentially just give the Secretary of State $1,500 and give their company name, who their contact is, their address, and promise to have car insurance. And then the contracts are gone. Now, Kit Williams has done analysis of this more from a legal standpoint. Paul Becker has been looking at this bill from a financial point, and then Fritz's expertise largely, too, looking at things from a technical point. Fritz has been able to provide things that nobody in the state has analyzed or been able to analyze. In fact, when the municipal league was looking at this, they looked for an expert out of state. So we're really lucky here to have his expertise there. And then Susan and others, of course, coming in and nailing in these facts. One thing is clear after I went to Little Rock last week, one thing is clear with the legislators. I think a lot of them, they have no clue what PEG is. They didn't know anything about this. They don't, right. Well, they don't know much about the rights of ways. I talked to a legislator today, and he's actually co-sponsor on the bill, was asking me about, you were mentioning right of ways, and he wasn't quite sure how that fit within. Well, it's mentioned in here several times. So I think it's a complex topic with lobbyists running around at the Capitol making it a very clear thing that at least 22 other states have done this, that it streamlines the process and makes it better, and it makes it more marketable so that more video service providers can come to Arkansas and provide better quality service for all the people of Arkansas. And they go, oh, wow, that's really great, and they signed on. I will say Senator Joyce Elliott has signed on, and after several people had talked to her, and I know Little Rock and Fayetteville are the cities that were largely most against this. The third amendment on this bill was Senator Elliott removing her name as a co-sponsor. So the hope is that people will peel off. It is probably going to be brought to the Senate committee next week. If it gets out of the Senate committee, it will go to the Senate floor the day after it gets out of that committee. It would then have to go to the other house, which would be the House. We don't know where it would be sent. I was surprised that this got sent to Insurance and Commerce. So it could get sent to the House Agriculture Committee. But, yeah, I've seen that happen before. And then if it passes the House, it goes to the floor. So we have a little time, but not too much time in the sessions heating up. But there's a big learning curve with this, and we are still opposed to it fully. I've used the analogy recently of imagine if you were, we protect in Arkansas landowner rights. Imagine if Blake rented out his home, and he gets the rent for it. But without notice, the renters come in, they want to dig up your backyard. They think they want a pool, but they're not really sure. So they just leave a big hole out there. They want to take a couple of walls down. They want to expand another area. And they do this to a place that they're renting. Okay? And say the state authorized them to do it without your permission on a house that you own. That is what we're talking about. So we are a state in Arkansas, and this is what I've been arguing to a lot of the legislators as well. When you look at the Arkansas Constitution, we are different from other states. So if they say they've passed statewide franchises, some of them have passed statewide franchises. So the important thing on this bill to note is they aren't replacing local franchises with a franchise. They will be gone. Contracts will be gone. The companies will get to do whatever they want to. We in Arkansas have probably the highest constitutional protection of property rights, and it's in our Constitution. We in Arkansas have the strongest Freedom of Information Act, and we argue for local government accessibility principles. We also have in our Constitution, it says, no law shall be passed that impedes in any way with an existing contract. So we've got three high Arkansas values that are being destroyed through this one bill alone. So we're making all the arguments that are out there. What's surprising is, and I'm hoping, after hearing some of this and where the process is right now, I hope that you're thinking this is a bad bill. The thing is, even when we tell these arguments and other ones to legislators, they're not, some are still going with the corporate power in terms of, well, this makes television more available to individuals. So it's a learning curve. So our goal is to get this killed.
I have a question of both you and Ms. Norton. Did Cox contact either the city or the school district before they introduced this legislation trying to get out of the franchise?
Definitely not the school district. We've not had a conversation with them at all. Before Christmas, I got a call because I deal, Lynn Pickpock is the lobbyist, essentially, for Cox. I had received a message that he had called me. And for probably a couple of weeks, I kept calling, leaving a message here. So I don't know if that's one of those, well, I called, kind of situations that he has yet to get back with me. And here's an interesting part about your question. If this bill is totally to say, hey, we trust these entities to be stewards of the public land, to be acting on all of these different factors without any accountability, without any control. In fact, they use the word ministerial only when they deal with what the role of the Secretary of State will be. And these are the ones they want to turn all this over to, but they haven't notified the cities of this. They haven't said anything. We have talked to them previously. If they saw this coming, please give us a heads up. Yeah, sure we will. Have not seen that. So they haven't set a good track record for the things that they're promising legislators that they'll do.
Well, and I just want to remind, this probably never came before this committee, that detail back, 2-3 years ago when they moved our channels to that other tier. which limited access to the public. Anyway, we had a conversation with Mr. Pitcock then, when we were expressing dismay about that move, and we were told then that we were lucky to have what we had, and basically, just be grateful. And that's how the conversation went. So I mean, I'm totally with you as a citizen. The idea that the property rights issue is very troublesome for me, and then as a public school employee and the education channel provider with our students who work so hard in the broadcast arena, the idea that we might lose some of that capacity is really troublesome, that we might have to co-locate with, if we all had to share, that would be extremely impossible for the live coverage that we like to do for all of the events that we can bring live, just as the city does. And so anyway, and we used to have to share with the university, and it was great that we could work out that collaboration, but it got to be difficult with scheduling and just impossible with the coverage of the events that we both wanted to do. So when we're grateful to get our own channel. Thank you, Lindsley, for helping make that happen. The last negotiation with the city was, what emerged was that we had a separate education channel. And if we lose that negotiating power, then, we don't have the city having a contract, and we have lost a lot. Well, who knows what we'll do? Like you said, the language is so willy-nilly. May, shall,
And to play on her point here, I mean, even when you look at this, a political subdivision served by an incumbent video service provider that opts to provide service under a certificate of franchise authority issued under blah, blah, is entitled to PEG channels under this section, right? And they do talk about if you have an existing contract and all of that, designate a significant amount of capacity on its network to allow up to 3 PEG channels or channels equal to a number of those that have been activated by an incumbent video service provider. Of course, there's a lot of language in here, too, that can mean that they can take it away almost immediately as well. But they did take out that you must have 15 hours of this kind of programming and video, and it was horrible.
And they have said face-to-face that they would like to take it away. So why would we?
Yeah, and then if you have never had a PEG channel before, and this is where it limits it for Arkansas, then if the political subdivision was not served by an incumbent video service provider, the video service provider shall provide 1 PEG channel for the use of the political subdivision. So there is a limit there. So if we want to be a state where we actually have more accessibility to the government, that we have more local governments filming their meetings and showing to the public and having them do that, there's a lot of language in here where they're limiting that. One thing I want to say as well, if you have costs, and if you look on your bill, you'll see my name on it. I'm hearing right now from what some complaints are. And when we hear some, we come to this committee. Like, last month it was that Cox, there were 2 different times when an emergency message should have gone up, and especially the university called each time. But it was just a blank screen where there was nothing there. And he said that this is something else that they have to follow federal laws, et cetera, et cetera. But they have a language in this one that I love.
And may I say, Lindsley, as a former law clerk in the South Carolina House of Representatives to the Labor, Commerce, and Industry Committee, I would tell you that it is not poorly written, it is inartfully drawn.
You're right. Yeah. Well, because it deals with commerce, and it sort of says that to you, doesn't it? This is for economic development, for giving the public property to a corporation without any accountability. The total control that they have over it. We're working environmental issues right now. When one of these companies, like AT&T in particular, we've heard from them, when they go out next to a stream and they start digging in our right-of-ways and everything, and don't put silt nets and everything up in order to protect that, and we get sediment in there, taxpayers are also going to have to clean that up. And so it's hard already to get them to be good stewards of putting the right-of-ways back and everything, not having anything, not having a contract, not having anything written down. We have absolutely no control over what happens literally with that dirt. are what we have. Also building out facilities and how we can't touch that, and well, where are you going to put the building? Here's what I did. One more thing I wanted to fine tune you on in this bill. Let's see, section. If you look at your copy, you'll see my name on it. So I'll get a lot of complaints and different things from the public. Some things that fit within our franchise authority, some things that do not. But I work it out with speak mainly with Kelly Bader, who does communication for COPS, or if it relates to the school district, and I talk all the time, almost weekly. And so we help the people of the city. Now, if you look, here's some wording here. A video service provider shall maintain a local or toll-free number for customer service contract. And there's a lot of language in there about things that are so straight up. I mean, it's sort of like, you will breathe air. I mean, there's so many things in here that where you go, well, that's good, and I can see legislators may be looking at that, but anyway. A video service provider shall implement an informal process for handling political subdivision or customer inquiries, billing issues, service issues, and other complaints. Well, come on. How many businesses, particularly corporations that are national or worldwide known, don't have a process anyway of handling complaints and don't deal with their own billing, and things like that. So that's another thing that's put in there. This is what's particularly troubling here. If an issue is not resolved through the informal process under subdivision B2A of this section, a political subdivision may request a confidential, non-binding mediation with the video service provider with the cost of the mediation to be shared equally between the political subdivision and the video service provider. This bill would take away total control of the public's land and the ability of the city to do anything about anything, take away our contract, but if their customers aren't happy with that company's service, then the city has to pay half of the amount of a mediation to make sure their private company and their private clients are happy with how their problem was resolved, and it's confidential, so I can't come in here and tell the telecom board that there was a complaint. As you can see, it is egregious. So. Right?
So may I ask, you said you've spoken to several legislators. What official steps has the city taken? Has there been a resolution to our county and regional legislators? What have we done as a city so far?
What we've done is do official statements of the city of Fayetteville when we support or when we don't support something on this particular bill. So they know repeatedly we have not supported any of the amended versions and why. So, and we have that backing, with the city. Now, the city council has not done a resolution on that. Now, if it comes out of that Senate committee, and that's where we're mainly doing the fight right now, you get it killed early on, if possible. If it gets out of that and gets to the floor, then we'll have to start pulling together a whole lot more. And I think a lot of people statewide don't know about this. They really just don't know about it. This is one of those things that when it passes, they will see it in their lives. Both the local government, the state, the legislators who are going to get the calls, wondering, why do I have, what can I do now from their constituents that aren't happy with their cable service and everything, and cities saying, hey, call your legislator. It will be a sad thing.
I have reached out just to our local area legislators, and Senator Lindsey, Lindsey, has said that, and he's not on the committee, so if it gets all the way to the floor, he will oppose. And I think he'll be talking about this with people he knows. So we're starting to get some momentum. If it has to go, if it gets out of committee, we hope that we can, educate. It's all about educating people who are too busy to really care about this. And like Lindsay said, it just sounds good. So why would they put it on their plate to think about? Because they have really other important things to be thinking about right now in this incredibly historic legislative session.
Can either of you think of a single benefit that a customer or citizen of Fayetteville would receive as a result of this passing?
I can't, and I can't imagine how it's being marketed to the legislature and, what the positive points would be other than what they say, and that is new providers, new entry, level playing fields, make it easier, more choice, the old market-driven stuff, you know, that's...
Here's what plays off from our comment here. This is the emergency clause. They hold on to your seats. This is pretty funny. It is found and determined by the General Assembly of the State of Arkansas that perhaps the lack of uniformity in laws governing video service providers is inequitable to certain citizens and government entities, that this act establishes uniform regulation of video service providers and a simplified process for the issuance of a state franchise that will encourage entry of new video service providers to the state marketplace. And that this act is immediately necessary because it ensures uniform regulation of video service providers, assures equality of treatment of video service providers, and encourages new video service providers to enter the state. Therefore, an emergency is declared to exist, and this act being immediately necessary for the preservation of the public peace, health, and safety shall become effective on the day it's approved by the governor, et cetera, et cetera. No citizen that I have found, not collecting, no citizens asked for this. No entity other than, I think, the video service providers have been fighting for and looking for this. I know Fritz has some things he'll want to add on this as well. So, no. I don't see any benefit.
The providers aren't doing it to encourage their competition to join ranks.
There's no way. Yeah.
So, for our great citizens that are watching television right now, and we had, you know, we love elevator speeches in my line of work. The three worst things, how a citizen of Fayetteville will be harmed by this legislation: they lose their right, they lose many rights to this. The potential right for environmental harm if they live on a street where there could be damage. They lose their right to voice complaints. Their free access to people willing to listen and try to help is removed. What would be some other rights that our dear citizens would?
Do you think a company would come in to work with a right-of-way that hadn't talked to a city and wondering what's the boundaries of that right-of-way? And you have a house, and that right-of-way is in the front yard. You've been cutting that grass for 20 years, and you don't know who that person is out there digging in your yard. We just had 2 weeks ago, a woman thought that was her land. SWOCO came out there, and they were digging a dictionary thing, and she tried to stop them, and she jumped in the hole, and they, you know, we had to work on, you know, getting her out, and then it was resolved, that was a right-of-way area where they could be, et cetera, But, I mean, if you're next to a right-of-way, and they say the area above, below, the air, as far as you can see, all of this area, wherever the easement is, whether it's on the water or not, we want to run through Lake Fayetteville, there are a lot of concerns with that. Yeah. There's the pricing. There's no way to regulate the pricing. Secretary of State's office isn't going to do this. There's no ability to regulate anything. It's a takeover. So if they're concerned at all with their cable or any of the issues they have right now, then their only resolution is talk to their provider and how has your customer service been so far. Right?
Anything else that we need to?
I don't know anything else. I would say, right now, of the legislators, I think everybody on the Insurance and Commerce Committee, is sort of the perspective, but we have been focusing on Representative Woods as well as others. When I write him, I'll copy other legislators. Fritz did an excellent memorandum on the newest amendment last night.